Radio Free Santa Clarita presents The Talk of Santa Clarita, a podcast about issues involving Santa Clarita and the surrounding valley. Episode 124, Frank Ferry. And now, let's see what the Talk of Santa Clarita is.
And remember, this is for posterity, so be honest.
Thank you for doing this today. You are Frank Ferry, the man, the myth, the legend.
Well, probably more myth than legend.
One person, I told them that you were going to get on the show, come on the show, and they said to me that you are probably one of the most influential people that have ever come out of Santa Clarita for this city. How does that make you feel when someone says that about you?
Well, it's flattering. There definitely are many. Mm-hmm. I think the difference with me is that I was probably the first person that transplanted in. Mm-hmm. And there are so many significant people in our community. The Buck McKeons, the Marsh McLeans, the Lorraine West, the Cameron Smythes. Mm-hmm. These are people that have sort of legacy names or legacies for years. And I was the first person that came. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, Granada Hills, and when I got married and looked for a home to afford for a family, I came to Santa Clarita.
Why? Why did you come to Santa Clarita?
It's basic economics. I mean, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and at the time, in 1990, couldn't afford a home. You just couldn't afford a home anywhere in the valley. So didn't want to make the drive down Oak Valley. So we found a home in Saugus, fell in love with it, and came up here and started our family and just had a great experience. And that's why I'm that probably first person that came here and then, really just completely engaged in the community, whether it was when I was at Valencia or Saugus, but also when I ran for city council. I was that first group of people that came from somewhere into the valley and just wanted to be in public service.
Now, let's talk a little bit about you growing up a little bit. You grew up, you said Granada Hills.
Correct.
I assume Catholic school or?
Well, no, I went to Rinaldi Elementary, public, Frost Junior High, public, and then I went to high school at Alamany High School. Had a great experience there for 4 years. My brothers went there. Alamany is a very close-knit community. People that go there, whether you graduate in 73, 83, 93, you have this bond, a family bond, that you just don't usually get in a public high school.
Right.
And so when I was there, I was student body president there. I was on the CIF championship soccer team. I played goalkeeper, and I just look back with just fond memories at Alamany.
Okay. And then you became a teacher. I'm curious why was that your career choice? What was it about that made you want to become a teacher?
Well, I started initially out of college. I was in sporting goods at Gemco, so you might be too young to remember Gemco as what was before Target. Mm-hmm. I come from a family of educators. Okay. My dad was a principal for 30 years in Los Angeles Unified Schools. My mom is a principal secretary at Nobel Middle School. Okay. My brother's at Pacoima Junior High. My brother Vince is here at Saugus High School. He's the principal. My sister-in-law is at Valencia High School. Jody's at Rancho Pico. I mean, it's just a family of educators. So when I went to take my mom out for lunch one day, the principal, George Tepang, came out and said, I could use a teacher. I was going to law school at the time. He says, keep going to law school. I could use a teacher right now. And so 3 days later, I was in the classroom. And I loved it. I absolutely loved being an educator. I still went on, finished law school. And I taught ESL, English as a second language. Okay. I taught social studies. And then I was also the leadership teacher.
And you finished law school on top of that?
I finished law school at night, and I passed the bar in 92.
Oh, wow, that's pretty impressive to be working full-time and in law school.
It was tiring. I remember being very tired driving home. So,
were you married at the time you were doing all this?
Yes, I had married and kids.
I'm in school right now, and my wife, her patience is running thin. So, how do you do that as far as working full-time, going to law school, have a family?
Jody was very patient, and she was also going to school. So,
Okay.
I mean, it was this crazy where I was teaching during the day, Jody was teaching during the day. I went to law school at night, and then when law school was on its break, I would spend 2 to 3 months in the summer going to get my teaching credential. So even when I had a break, I had to go to school all day, 8 hours a day to get the teaching credential. And once you get in this groove of school, it keeps going. And then all of a sudden I would say, okay, I'm going to get my master's in education. Okay, I'm going to get my administrative credential. And you just keep going. And it's once you stop, it's extremely difficult to get back and get that discipline of being in a classroom.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. When you moved to Santa Clarita, this is what year? What was the year that you moved?
90.
90.
Yep.
Tell me what Santa Clarita. I think a lot of people, particularly our audience, doesn't know. See, I moved out here in '93, and I ended up moving back to Hollywood after I finished film school. But when I moved back here again, the change in the city was radical. I mean, as far as the growth that had happened and everything like that. I'm curious, what it was. Can you describe to people what it was like in '92? I mean, when you first moved out here.
Well, I mean, you really have. It really was the tale of two communities within the city, and that was you had a master plan community, which was New Hall Land and Farm.
Right.
And I was always one of the biggest advocates for them because I thought, just did an amazing job when it came to sustainability. They made sure you had your paseo walkways, you had your bridges. They built schools right next to parks. They put community centers, or they put in the commerce centers for different communities, so you didn't have to go searching for a loaf of bread. So you had that, but then you also had, similar over in Canyon Country, I think at one time there was like 18 different developers. So you just had this hodgepodge throughout everywhere. There was no consistency. There was no continuity between one development and another. So when we became a city in 1987, you had these two different haves and have-nots. And so those who lived in the planned community on the west side had a lot of the amenities that the east side wanted. So I know initially on the council we had to, we put more resources and assets probably initially over into Canyon Country just to make it a one flavor, so everyone felt like they were part of a city without taking away Canyon Country's sort of more urban, just more of a cowboy feel they have there at the time. The one thing that I loved then, if I look back those first maybe 10 years, growing up in the San Fernando Valley, it was very family oriented, very, you knew your neighbors. You come up here and it was exactly the same. I mean, you had community events everywhere. You had family events everywhere. You knew your neighbors. I mean, everybody was in the AYSO soccer and the little leagues, and
they still are pretty much.
Yeah, they are, and it's such a feeling. But even now, it's like I worry sometimes because even some of the schools that my kids went to, or I see, it's the same as I see now in the San Fernando Valley, where you'll have a thriving school, but families, they love it. They love being in a community. They have their kids go through the local public schools. They don't move. They can't afford to move. And now the school, their population's completely dropped. And so you just see that you got to have some new ingrowth of youth and young people, or the community does change. The other thing is, I was always so proud, there was at a time probably 95 nonprofits in our community, and people were just active and it was bustling. Well, we probably could have done a better job of bringing new people and new life in to volunteer, and bringing more people that were going to be supportive through funds. And so I hope that is something that everyone really looks to, is that how are we going to keep this sort of small town community feeling as we continue to grow?
It seems to be a challenge that I've talked about actually on the show before, that Santa Clarita seems to be at that turning point of being either a large community, I mean, it's a big city, but still has that small town feeling to it. In a certain sense, I get the impression, at least, that for the city council, it's kind of happening, and they're kind of kicking and screaming about, no, don't let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage you have right now is, I mean, Marshall McLean, Lorraine West, Cameron Smythe, Bob Keller, Miranda, they've been around for so long that they definitely have an absolute love and passion for the community, and they want to make it the very best. It's going to be what happens the next, cycles, the next thing, because so many of the great names, when you think of a Connie Warden Roberts, you think of a Tom Lee, a Gary Cusimano, there are just so many people that made our community, and they're no longer with us, whether they moved away or they passed. And people will come here because they're attracted by the schools and the parks, and they're attracted by, the commerce centers, and they're attracted by the open space around. And it's just, if they don't get into public service and volunteerism, that feeling we've had now for decades, it could go away. It could become, I know when I moved to my neighborhood, 6 years almost now, it was hard because I was like, my wife said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm meeting the neighbors. I'm talking to the neighbors. They just don't do that. It isn't that's not the thing. So all of a sudden it's like, I'm literally like talking to my neighbors on the left and right. I'm talking to 3 neighbors across the street. They're talking, and every time I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm getting to know my neighbors. Well, they were in the same place where they weren't used to it. So all of a sudden this big 6'5", 300-pounder is coming at them. They're wondering what's going on. But for me, it's like once you make those connections and once you know their names, and now it's easy. Now the 5 neighbors around me, we all know each other, we talk. But I don't want to get it to the point here in Santa Clarita where we don't have that block, where the block knows everybody on the block. And that was a great feeling when I had that.
When did you first run for city council?
I ran in '96 and lost.
Okay.
I ran initially, I was the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed person who was going to run and upset the apple cart. And I did, in the sense that nobody knew me. And there was already like candidates, there was already people that the chamber and the established group knew.
It's kind of the same way it is now.
And so for me, it's like, I was going to bust through that. And people would meet with me and say, hey, you're young, why don't you try again later, we'll get to know you. Well, I ran, and I lost to Jan Haidt and Jill Klajek by like 60 votes. Wow. And I had beaten the 2 establishment people. So pretty much it was the hello, I'm here, and the next time when I won in '98, it was a whole different thing. I mean, it was a whole different thing.
What did you do to win? What is the secret to winning?
Well, I really was grassroots. Well, first of all, I was the ASB director at Valencia High School.
Right, so you already knew.
And I was very popular.
Yeah.
I just was very popular with at that school.
Yeah.
But really, I came in and I aggressively took on issues that people might talk about. But for me, it was like, when it came to roads, I mean, I just beat it up. I was directly challenging everyone on everything about because people were playing nice and not wanting to hurt people's feelings about things. And I just was like, hey, look, Cal Grove was built to be put through from the freeway. It wasn't there for a gate. Right. And so any issue anywhere, I was like, every road's a good road. And, the Cross Valley Connector, it just, the fact that the state was going to pay for that for $110 million, but our community said no, it blew my mind. So it's like I took that on, and we ended up doing it, but it was $240 million, cost twice the money. And so initially I just became that person, and I just took people on in a way they hadn't seen before. The other thing was the council, I mean, everyone was 60 or plus. And so I'm coming in at the time, was like, 28 years old maybe? I don't know. Yeah. And I represented what Santa Clarita was becoming. It was the young family, young kids. Yeah. And back then, people were literally playing soccer, practicing soccer and t-ball behind supermarkets on cement. There was no grass. So we came in over, time and built 20 plus parks everywhere because it was just such a demand. But So I think that was the thing. I think it just resonated, and it helped. I mean, it just helped because I also knew how to do campaigns. I mean, I knew campaigns, so it wasn't like I was going in and I was stupid. I mean, I knew how to do campaigns.
A lot of people would say, I mean, you talk like you were a little bit, you were challenging the establishment when you came in. A lot of people would say, particularly, you were for 16 years? Is that correct on the city council? Some would say that you became the establishment. Do you think that's the case?
I guess of any elected official that's in office for a period of time, you're always going to be pinned with that title, or you can't help it. I mean, anyone that's in office for a period of time, you're just going to always be pinned as the establishment person. I think, in fairness, though, for me, throughout the 16 years, whether people said it or not, I was consistent on what I stood for. But if there were issues that came to the council that were difficult, I didn't back down. And a good example is the hospital.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
You know, I mean, my hospital, I live right there at Granary Square. And I had literally, if you go back and look, every precinct around Granary Square, I finished first, except the time when the hospital issue was there. I finished dead last in my own neighborhood with my own people. But I always said I was going to do what was best for the community, and I was going to do what's best for the city as a whole. And I wasn't going to vote on what's best for Granary Square.
Right.
Because the reality is, you know, at the time, everyone was like very aggressive and argumentative about build another hospital over in Canyon Country, build a hospital where. Well, my thing was there was no one knocking on the door saying I'm here to build a hospital. Yeah. You know, it cost $1 billion at the time to build a hospital based on the earthquake renovation stuff. So I saw, you know, Roger Seaver, I saw their board, and I'm like, why wouldn't we want the absolute best hospital here in our community, bringing in the best doctors? And I'm the first to admit, is it on the best piece of property? No, but it's what we have.
Yeah.
So that's an example of 16 years in where I was the voice on the council that aggressively pushed for that.
Well, a lot of people would, I mean, the concern I would say that some would say is that Canyon Country, you know, it's a long schlep to the hospital. You know, I mean, why? I mean, and yes, it does cost a lot of money to build a hospital, but why wasn't there a drive to maybe recruit or bring in somebody to, I mean.
But see, what you're forgetting is, in the San Fernando Valley, you had Granada Hills Community Hospital. You had, I can think of, there's like 4 hospitals in the valley that closed down. I mean, they're gone. And they had, because of the state standards for what they had to do to retrofit hospitals, you got to the point where Holy Cross, West Hills, you were getting bigger hospitals on campuses, and there was efforts. I know there were council members that went out and did whatever they could do to try to get someone interested.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep their beds full and their facilities open where they're at.
Right.
So when people said, oh, just build a hospital, oh, get someone, that was just people that had absolutely no clue about the facts of that time. There was zero. There were no people trying to come to us to build a hospital. And that was the fact. I can't change the fact. If someone were to come today, they'd say, oh, look, Kaiser came in and built the hospital. Okay, sure. How many years later? 8 years later, whatever, when we passed. So I deal with the facts in that given moment. And you got to remember, we're coming out of a 2008, 2009 recession where economically and financially, there wasn't the money out there. You know, they weren't lending money and giving money to go do things and to produce things. So it was, at the time, the best possible solution. And that's what I want to remind people. We've had 2 major earthquakes, 94 and 71, where you could not get through the Newhall Pass on the 514. So for someone living in Canyon Country, I better have a hospital at least over here in Valencia, Henry Mayo, than to have no option where I have to try to go south on the freeway. So.
Okay. I was out with a friend of mine the other night and who grew up here. I told him I was going to interview you, and I said, do you have any questions? And he said, yeah, ask him what's up with Mayor Dude.
Oh.
Do you want to tell us
sure.
about that?
So I don't remember the year, to be honest. Everybody going into the year of their mayor would basically meet with Gail Ortiz and her staff to talk about, okay, what are some themes you want to do? Okay, and I know Cameron did milk and cookies with the mayor. So there are all the posters of him eating milk and cookies. And for me, it was, I wanted to engage elementary and junior high kids about what City Hall is, and I wanted to engage them in volunteerism. I wanted to see, and I challenged each of them on how can you as a school do something for your community. So basically, I went to every elementary school and junior high and spoke to them, and I believe almost every single one did something like plant trees or clean up something. They all took on a project. And so the mayor dude basically was, it was a effort for me to identify with youth and kids in this persona. So I think there was a guitar, the sunglasses, but the whole concept was, I'm this mayor dude, like this cool dude that's here for you, the kids, to interact with City Hall in order to do something of community service. And so that was the whole concept.
I think, well, just so you know, I think kids don't use the term dude anymore.
Not anymore, but that was, it has to be over 10 years ago. Yeah. I mean, it had to be well over 10.
I think I use the term dude more than my kid does. So, you know. When you were running for city council, you talked about like the things you wanted to do. I mean, would you say you had like a very specific vision that was different than what the rest of the city council had at the time, and like you knew very specifically?
I don't know if it's different. I'm very action oriented. Like whatever I want to get done, I want to be successful in completing it and then moving on. And one of the things that was different than maybe some of the other council members is I always had a full-time job. So if I was principal of Alamany, I mean, I was focused in on Alamany or Saugus or Valencia. Then I had my kids I would coach. So for me, it was like I didn't have a lot of time to sit there and ponder. So I really would like look at, okay, what do I want to get done? Who do I have to make collaborations, partnerships with? How are we going to get there? Move, and then boom, go on to the next thing. Right. So it really was a matter of going for it. Plus, see, I have an advantage, and that is we have had, you know, George Carvalho, Ken Polskam, and now Ken Striplin. I trust staff. Yeah. Some people inherently don't trust staff. So my job was to set good policy, get the votes, and then trust city manager and staff to get it done. They've done an amazing job. So I'm not someone that's going to check and see what paint color or what, you know, type of brick, or that's not my thing. I'll let them do that. I just want to see that it's accomplished, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, certainly, I guess the time, your era as city council was the time I left and I came back. And I saw the difference, and I guess most of it would be attributed to a lot of what you were doing.
I really think it was a team effort. Yeah. I think it was nice because we were on the same page. There was a couple times. I mean, there was a few years where it was hard to be on the council.
Why was it hard?
I mean, Tim Ben Boydston, if he and I were to sit in the same chair and say, "Is the sky blue?" he would argue it's not blue. And I went to Tim Ben at least 2-3 times, and I specifically said, "What can you and I work on together so we can get 5 votes to do something?" Yeah. He straight out just told me that's not why I'm here. His job was to be the instigator. He was going to be the anti-staff, anti-establishment, and it's sad because for the time he was on there, I don't think he got anything done that maybe he wanted to get done, but you have to build relationships. Yeah. I mean, I could do nothing over the years I was on there if I didn't build relationships with fellow council members. And there was always a time where I disagreed with Marsha, Lorene, Cameron, Bob, but it's like a family. In that moment, you disagreed in the vote. Yeah. The next day, you move on for the next thing. And for certain council members, they couldn't get past that. They couldn't get past it. And it just became such a thorn that it just wasn't comfortable.
Well, I mean, my first experience with you, I mean, you are. I would say you are kind of a somewhat controversial figure as
because I'm outspoken. I'm not going to sit there and be quiet. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's controversial. I really do think it is advocating for people that aren't in the room. Yeah. So when I'm sitting there and I'm advocating or I'm pushing, I think I'm doing what I think the city as a whole is looking for to happen. Because people don't get involved. They don't run. They don't even vote a lot of times. Yeah. So I feel like while I'm in there, I'm going to vigorously advocate for what's best. Well, I mean, despite it's going to hurt me. I already know every single time I vote for something that people in the room are against, I lose every one of their votes in the room. That's how it is. When you show up in the room and there's 300 people and half are yes and half are no, when I vote, half those people will not vote for me again. I go to church with them. I see them at the store. I've coached their kids. But in that given issue, of that given moment, it mattered to them. And if I'm on the wrong side, but I just don't worry about that. I just always will do what I think's best for the city.
Let me tell you,
you may disagree.
No,
but.
I don't. I'm just I mean, you have a dedication to public service, and certainly a great respect for the offices themselves. But let me tell you my first experience with you.
Sure.
It was over the billboard issue.
Okay.
And Cam Noltemeyer came in and accused you of not living in the district anymore, or in the city anymore. You stood up and screamed at her and called her a liar. And it was such a public display of emotion, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe it. Marsh McLean had to call a recess to let tempers calm down. My wife was watching on TV, and she texted me. She goes, "Well, Frank Ferry's an interesting character."
Yeah. See, now here's what's hard.
Yeah.
Everyone that sits on that dais, they're a human being person.
Yeah.
Okay. They all have their own opinions, their own things. That was your first encounter with me.
Yeah.
Now imagine if I sat listening to Cam Noltemeyer for 16 years, where she got up 3 to 5 times, came to the mic, and blatantly told non-truths that you could verifiably say are lies. So when she comes, and why does she do? Because if you remember, the reason she did what she did, there was a council member down in LA who was getting arrested, going to go to jail I forget, because he didn't live in the district. Okay?
Yeah.
She's trying to tie me to that. Yeah. Okay? Because I have a fiance at the time that's down there. And so for me, it's like, enough's enough. So I'm going to be a human being as well as a council member at that moment. Yeah. And I'm not going to be silent. And you know why you're not going to be silent? Because how many people, including your wife, will think, she said it, I was silent, therefore it must be true. Now, can I be less aggressive and yell at her? Sure, in hindsight a lot of times. But that's where the human being part comes out. Because it's a direct attack on me, it's a direct attack on my sons, it's a direct attack on my fiance. And there's a point where enough's enough.
But I understand that. I do.
No, but what I'm saying, going back in time.
Yeah.
Going back in time, could I have done it differently?
Yeah.
Yes. Would I? Yes.
Okay.
But in the moment,
right.
That's my point. In the moment, you have to take what's going on in that place, and that's how I reacted at that time. I'm telling you now, removed 5 years, I would definitely do it different. But I'm older. Let's put it this way. There's 150 times I didn't react to her that way. Yeah. She hit a nerve specifically that was a nerve that was directed to me and my fiance and my sons. She's basically saying, you got to remember, that's the other thing you got to understand. Where am I working at the time?
At the time you were working in the Valley, weren't you?
At Alameda High School, Catholic High School.
Yeah.
I made clear, and I was so absolutely made it so clear to everyone that I was living in my house and not my wife. Why? Because I'm not married.
Right.
And as the Catholic principal, I'm not going to go against that in my contract with them. So she's directly putting something out in the public that's saying I'm going against my contract with the Catholic Church. Not to mention, I have people outside my house all the time saying, is he living here? Is he not living there? My sons would go out, knock on the window. My dad's inside, you know what I'm saying? Just stupid. And so she was just someone that was very similar to Tin Ben. She only wanted to agitate, and she only wanted to throw little bombs out there.
But, I was, again, evaluating the council, I was told, watch out for Frank Ferry, he has a temper. At times. Yeah, I mean, for example, I guess it's kind of become now known as the Tim Ben rule, which is the requirement for three people to bring three of the council members to put something on the agenda. That was put there specifically because of your problems, I guess, for lack of a better way of describing it, with Tim Ben.
And that's not true.
That's not true. Okay.
No.
Then what's the rationale behind that?
It's a result of Tim Ben.
Yeah.
But it's 100% 4 other council members agreed that we couldn't move forward as long as he was doing things just to cause problems.
But doesn't that rule...
No, but see, our job is to make, you're a citizen of Santa Clarita, our job is to make sure that the city of Santa Clarita is being serviced in all aspects.
Right.
If we're only dealing with things that waste staff time, that's going to always be a 1-4, 1-4, 1-4, 1-4. Am I taking care of your park? Am I taking care of your potholes? Am I taking care of graffiti? Am I taking care of the new community center? The answer is no. Yeah. So if you have a person where it's 100%, their job is to agitate, to cause issues, and that's all they've shown it to be, there's a point where the council has to own its agenda. And the council is a body. Right. I'm one person. So if me and 3 others are voting that we're gonna definitely have our agenda within our control so we can make the city a great place, that's not Frank Ferry. That's the council. Frank Ferry might have brought it up, but that doesn't mean it's Frank Ferry. It's that the council voted. I mean, that's just the way we work. If you didn't get 3 votes, nothing moved forward.
But I mean, isn't that? I have a real problem with that as far as the norms and procedures, because to me it strikes me. I understand what you're saying, but it seems like Tim Ben or anybody is an elected leader by the people.
Right.
So if someone is able to come to Tim Ben or you or any other elected leader and say, look, I think ice cream cones in the pocket should be made illegal. They can convince the council member that should be a law, that council member should be able to bring it to at least put it on the agenda. If requiring 3 people, that's making it a vote before there's a vote.
Honestly, it's exactly what we do in the state legislature. It's exactly what they do in the federal legislature. Mm-hmm. It's just what is. If you're a part of a body, you have to have a minimal support to bring something forward. Not just one person, whether you're in the state or Congress, and most cities. So at that time, if he brought something reasonable for a vote, he'd get 2 votes. That wasn't the issue. The issue, I constantly would support someone to bring something forward and vote against it. I didn't have a problem with that. The problem is, what are you bringing forward for what purpose? If you wanted me to vote again, that's fine, but you can't shut down government because of it. And that's what the effort was. I know that's not what you saw. That's what the effort was. It was to shut down government.
Okay.
My opinion right now. Along with the rest of the body. So.
All right. Do you feel that as Santa Clarita has grown, I mean, one of the complaints, I think, particularly from the left side, is that there's been too much development. Do you feel that? I mean, do you feel that the city maybe has grown too much in a lot of ways? There's been too much expansion.
My experience is the person that moves in today, tomorrow doesn't want another home built. Yeah, that's it. Every person that moves to Santa Clarita the next day is the next person to say no more. Well,
how do you feel about it now? I mean, do you think that
Look, the thing that makes me laugh is, in many ways, when it came to sustainability, I was actually more so where when there was a development, I said it had to be revenue neutral. When we had an annexation, it had to be revenue neutral. When someone came in, my policy from day one was, your homes are not going to affect the citizens that already are here in Santa Clarita. So you had to bring something more than just build and suck away the energy. So for me, it's like, if you're going to build something, I want to see how it's going to affect police, fire. I want to see parks. I want to see, are you going to build a school? Are you going to put your money into B&Ts for roads and for, I want to look at the water. So for me, it was like, I always looked at that if you're going to develop, I understand that, I appreciate that you have those rights as a property owner, but you can't detract from those citizens already here. So we had a very aggressive policy that we put forward, and I thought it was pretty good. Now, obviously, the recession slowed everything down. Newhall Ranch project, I mean, what is that, 21,000 homes? I mean, that's
somewhere around there.
I don't know when or how long that's going to take to get through litigation. I would say any project that I voted on, I'm proud of. I'm not sure there was anything that I voted on where I wouldn't look to it and think, that's a good project that I'm proud that I had supported. So now the thing you have to realize, most of projects in many areas, when we brought in for 1987, we brought in based on those standards that the county had with developers. So, I mean, there's some things over in the river in Canyon Country that was expanded even in the county jurisdiction. I don't think those are good projects. I think it just absolutely was not planned or developed well.
Do you think the council still has the same vision as far an approach to things since you've left?
The policy is still in place. Mm-hmm. Other than the project, Vista Canyon project over in Canyon Country, which I think is a good project, you don't see a lot. There's not a lot, really. I don't see a lot being developed in Santa Clarita, like back in the late 90s, early 80s. But I think the council's vigilant on making sure that what's developed is good for the community and the city. So,
okay. I want to ask you about going back to about being on city council. Again, when I saw the incident between you and Cam Noltemeyer,
mm-hmm.
And this goes back to, this was during the electronic billboard issue, which
mm-hmm.
I am sick of talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you this: the thing about it for me wasn't so much about the issue about the billboards themselves. It seemed like there was an arrogance from the city council that they didn't want to listen to input from citizens that didn't want it there, that didn't want these billboards. And it seemed to be a pattern, and the reason I bring it up is not because I want to discuss the billboard issue, but the treatment of the people that were coming in to speak. You were famous for kind of saying that these were not normal people.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to remember something. When you say these people coming in to speak,
mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're talking about Noltemeyer or you're talking about
there were two, at one point for the billboard issue. There were
because just so you know, I was like the woman that had the billboards all over the railway person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I met with her a number of times. I'm the one that helped get to a resolution
mm-hmm.
that was going to be beneficial to her. She wasn't opposed to it.
Right.
People came out on her behalf and said she was opposed, but at the time, I mean, she was looking. The city was looking at removing 100 billboards. She was looking at a good financial thing for herself, her family, and so the only people I would ever say that about are the ones that were using it, I thought, for the wrong purpose. Now you got to remember, we knew that the city. I absolutely think the city, and I wasn't on the council, just so you know, when the whole vote went through and all that. I wasn't even around. I was only at this initial vote you're talking about, but when it came down to the whole. I don't think I was on the council when we even talked about having a vote, electoral vote.
I have, according to what I was researching, the statement that these are not normal people was made after about 200 people had come to a city council meeting to say that they did not want those billboards.
Yeah, but when I know for a fact I wouldn't make that statement about individuals from the public coming in. I wouldn't.
Okay.
So if I made the statement, I know it's specifically going to be towards 6 people that
mm-hmm.
once again came in.
That have come in several times.
No, not several times. every single meeting, that would speak 3 to 5 times every single meeting,
Right.
opposed to everything in life.
Yeah.
And so that statement, if I said it, I know it's going to be towards a specific small group of people, never to a population or a group. So
one of the things you talked about that was one of your original visions was the idea of more roads. Do you think the traffic problem has been solved out here? I don't think it has been. Why hasn't the traffic problem been solved out here?
Well, you said you moved in, what, 93? And then you moved away.
I moved away and came back.
When I lived in Saugus, and you would try to get from Saugus to the freeway, it was 30 to 35 minutes one way every day. So we did simple things like Decorro. We did Decorro, connected those two. And then we did Plum to the freeway. But then myself, I was the co-chair for the Cross Valley Connector, Santa Clarita Valley Transportation Alliance with Connie Warden. And we literally spent 8 years putting together federal, county, MTA, state, developer. We really put together a consortium of people to get the Cross Valley Connector done. You're never going to catch up per se, or it's going to be hard for 2 main reasons. Every time you cross, the railroad authority won't let you cross at grade, because if you do, you have to give up another at grade crossing. So in order to go over, it costs $40 million.
Okay.
Extremely expensive. Then you have the river. Every time you go over that, extremely expensive, and you have all the environmental issues. And then the entire city is mountains. The only roads we have are up McBean, Bouquet, Whites. Everything's through a canyon.
Right.
So the money to get anywhere, it's just between the river, the railroad, and the mountains. You're never going to have a grid system like the valley. It's not going to happen. It's just too expensive, and there's too much environmental issues and railroad issues. And
sometimes I feel like, as far as the grid plan goes, it's someone took a bunch of spaghetti and threw it up in the air and let it land, and went.
Well, if you look, it really is. All of our roads are through canyon areas.
Yeah. Any
areas we could have, for the best bang for the buck, got through little canyon areas with, little east-west. There's only 2 east-west. Soledad, Valencia, and Cross Valley Connector. That's it.
How's the campaign going for right now? You're running for city council in LA.
Yep.
How's that going so far?
Excellent.
Is it?
Yep. I'm excited because they're doing the signatures. I got qualified second. We're still waiting for 3 people, but out of the 20 or 17, I think now they're going to run, I'm the only one with elected service that has a list of accomplishments here in Santa Clarita that I'm proud of. And I got great volunteers. I have great leadership team, and I know the area. It's where I grew up for 25 years, and it's where I was principal of Alameda. All the kids and families came from this area, about 65%.
Where does that drive for public service come from? Beyond.
I thought about that today, not because of your interview. Just I really think. Well, my dad was a teacher. My mom is an educator. But I look back, and my dad started up Balboa. He started the soccer fields and baseball fields. And I remember at the age of 7, 8, I remember going out there and my dad putting us to work, doing stuff for the fields. And then my mom was in charge of the equipment, and I'm in charge of the snack bar. So I constantly remember volunteering the snack bar or putting the equipment together from all the teams. And then through church, we just always constantly were volunteering and doing things. And every Christmas, my dad would take us down to LA. Most people know as Skid Row, and we'd give money and do things for people in the that were homeless there. And so I just always had this life of my mom and dad. I think it's a learned behavior. I've always told parents in the high schools that you just don't learn how to be a volunteer. Or no, you don't. It is not natural for people to learn to volunteer, that it's a learned behavior. So
yeah, I agree with that.
So when I was at Valencia and Saugus and Alameda, it's like I just always had hundreds of ways kids could volunteer in their community to better it. And I think once kids see it, you get a good feeling from it. I mean, you always get a good feeling from service, but then it becomes just more natural where it's about extrinsic value of others, not what you're feeling inside. And so for me, it's I'm not driven at all by money. It's just not my thing. I'm not into it. It's not my thing. So for me, it's like being able to serve people and solve problems. I love it. It's something I enjoy.
Are you now? You are a Republican.
Yeah.
And you're running in a Republican district.
Correct.
I'm curious. One of the things I read about you when you were stepping down to city council, you consider yourself a moderate Republican.
Definitely.
Okay. Are you Are you in the Trump train then, or?
You know what? I'm respectful of every president that serves. I always have been. I mean, whether it's Obama or Clinton, I'm gonna be respectful of it. I mean, even like Obama, Republicans can say what they want. We're the wealthiest, most powerful country in the world. So for us to get into a fight over medical, I don't understand, because there's just a point where everyone needs to start coming to some agreement where no one in this country should not be able to get some minimal health benefits. We just are too wealthy of a country. And so I just start looking, I think for the president now, he does things. First of all, he just does things that are difficult. It's like you embrace the North Korean leader, you embrace the Russian leader, but you push back on England, Germany, and your friends. There's a reason they're called allies. Yeah. A year from now, we don't know what life's going to bring, and we're going to need those allies. But because you poke us in the eye and because you got out of this conference or that conference, I don't have to run readily to you as an ally anymore. I can sit there and wait and say, oh, you know what, we're gonna step back because you've opened that opportunity up. So things like that bother me. Other things he does, I don't know, dude. I mean, it's just, you're dude. I just told you dude.
The reason I ask is
I'm a big, I was at the Republican National Convention for Reagan, for Bush 1. I worked for the Republican National Committee for 4 years. There's 2 Republican clubs I started out here that didn't endorse me the last time because it went Tea Party, it went conservative. Well, I'm not going to apologize. That's not who I am.
Well, I mean, I guess that's my point is, I mean, the Republican Party since Trump seems to have taken a shift in a certain direction. And there are the people that are anybody but Trump, but I'm conservative, and then there is I'm on board with Trump and everything he does. And I'm just wondering, one of the things that you were at the March for Our Lives presentation, and as well as the last time I saw you was at the Katie Hill swearing in, and I just wondered, have your politics changed any? Have they?
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, here's my thing. Here's where I'm done. I am no longer going to be a lockstep follow people because they say follow. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. I don't feel like I ever have done it. But when it comes to Republican, I mean, some of the things said by Republicans I find to be hateful, to be racist. I am not going to associate myself with that. Okay. I refuse. I won't. Okay. I'm an educator who have had tens of thousands of students. I am not going to associate myself with anyone that is that way. And if there are any issues that are divisive, I'll give you an example. I forget who it was, but one of the council members brought up the whole gay issue for gay marriage. And I'm under the thing where I am never going to vote for something where someday my sons might come to me and, say they're gay, and I'm going to be like the guy who voted against them. I'm not going to do that. Right. I don't feel that's why I'm in public service. I don't. I just don't. Especially at the local nonpartisan level. So things like that, I just don't apologize for. I'm never going to apologize. I'm not a hateful person. I definitely think that We have every right as a country to have immigration laws that should be honored and should be protected, but I'm not going to back hateful or racist speeches because I've only seen Latinos in my life have been hardworking. They've only been, the families I've worked with in all my schools, they're just the most loving, beautiful people, and I don't want to be associated with being someone that hates a group of people, because I feel like right now that's what it's become. I don't think it's about documented and undocumented. I do think it's become a little bit anti, and I don't appreciate that. That's not something I'm ever going to be a supportive of.
I want to ask you, one of the things that intrigues me about if you win and you'll be on the LA City Council, you're part. That's a districted city, correct?
Right.
You were part of the negotiations, I guess, with the CVRA suit. Were you not? Or
when was this?
Right. I guess it was right around the time that you were. It was probably the last year that with the suit that was brought forth about districts for Santa Clarita. You weren't part of that negotiation, or?
Oh, you're talking about making Santa Clarita
districts. I'm sorry, I'm not explaining myself well.
Yeah,
I was talking in Stephen speak.
Yeah, I was still here.
Yeah. I mean, were you opposed to the idea of districts for Santa Clarita?
Well, okay. I personally, I look at it. I actually think it's a very positive thing having 5 at-large people, and the reason this is why I look at it now is I had to be so concerned with Canyon Country and so concerned with Saugus and Valencia and Newhall equally.
Right.
And so as the other 4 did. And so we always had to look to the totality to help each other out. Imagine if you had 5 council members in 5 districts. Now imagine now 1 council member is, and the council members in a district is Tim Ben. Mm-hmm. Now imagine what happens to his district based on what you saw and who he is. The other 4 are going to make sure their districts are taken care of. This district can't vote for us,
right,
only for Tim Ben.
Right.
So the at-large, to me, creates a situation where we all have to work together.
Well, that's I get that, and I think that's a legitimate argument. However, on the other end of it, when you look at the size of Santa Clarita, and particularly since the elections have been moved to November, a mailer to hit high propensity voters is now $30,000 to $40,000. Or you look at Cameron Smythe's campaign and Bob Keller's campaign; they were in the $80,000 to $100,000 to run for city council at large. How does somebody compete with that? Haven't you, in a sense, based on moving the date to November for an election and everything, increased the costs of running for city council to the point that it's almost like, it guarantees the incumbents?
You're right. Definitely about the cost for November. It definitely skyrockets. I think, whether you're in districts or at large, it's going to still be very expensive. But I haven't seen enough elections that are in November yet here to really see what because we used to win with 7,000 votes, and I think did Laureen and Marcia get 15 or 20,000 votes?
Around that. Yeah.
So. But
I
really can't answer that per se because
why not?
I remember when I ran.
But it was a different time when you ran. The city has
grown. You still had the at-large. You still had 90,000 registered voters.
Yeah.
Now it's probably 150,000 registered voters. I don't know, but the numbers different.
I think it's higher than that, actually.
Same as what I'm dealing with now. You have someone that might be an establishment person, and I'm coming in, and I have to compete with that in order to win. I can't change the rules per se.
But isn't it arguable, though, that as a district, though, you can walk that district? Whereas
I can walk. I'm gonna, whether it was here or down there, we're gonna walk the district. I might not be able to personally knock on every door, but we'll knock on every door. Mm-hmm. So,
it seems to me, as the size of the city increases, what has happened is we've guaranteed incumbents being reelected, and it has become impossible for someone like even yourself coming in and without some kind of established coffer to run, because the city's too large to actually knock on every door.
Right.
I mean, you can't have a grassroots candidate anymore, is what I'm saying.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, in LA, I'm in a district where the population is as large as Santa Clarita Valley, just one district. So the same holds true here. I mean, where I'm running right now, it's so large. I hear what you're saying, Stephen. I don't know. I mean, I'm being honest where I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
You mentioned Katie Hill.
Yeah.
Katie is an awesome person. She is very independent, well-spoken, very intelligent. I know I've gotten this question a million times over the last couple of weeks. Everyone's like, did you switch parties? This is one of those things where I told you where people are so entrenched in, I'm a Dem, I'm only back in the Dem. I'm a Republican, only back. Katie was my student for 4 years at Saugus High School. And she was amazing then. I mean, she would come in and challenge me, and she was very bright and just had everything together. So fast forward, she wins, and we were talking, and she asked me, "Hey, we're going to do this event, and would you be the MC?" And literally, there was 500 people, and I was a Republican, and there was 500 Democrats. And I said that then. I'll say now. I said, she's one of my students. I'm extremely proud of her.
Yeah.
She did something that's extremely difficult. I'm hoping that she is successful in what she does, and she's going to have to take on all the hits and all the future targets like everybody else. But I don't want to be against a person because there's a D versus R. I think Katie, I just wish her well. I wish she does everything she sets out to do. She's even then, there's even people where, like, I've had a few people that said that didn't give me, that were going to give me donations and didn't because of this thing. And for me,
really,
but that's normal.
Yeah.
Whenever I do anything, I weigh out. So I know that when I'm standing there, and it's going to be very public, that I'm the MC for Katie Hill.
Yeah.
I know that there's going to be a group of very conservative Trump supporter, Tea Party people that are going to see that. And no matter what I say, I've gone to the other side.
Yeah.
And they just can't handle that, oh, he's moderate, he's not. Now, I think I'm more honest in this approach than, for instance, I'm running against someone down in the Valley who wants to say, oh, I'm a Republican, running as an established person. But he worked for Joel Walks for a bunch of years. He worked for Tony Cardenas. He only has this history of then he wanted all of a sudden this job, so he became a Republican. That, to me, like, I've had 3 or 4 people say, well, just go independent, go decline to state. I can't do that just to win. It's like I have a whole history since I was 18 being this Republican. I look to the Newt Gingriches and the John McCains and Reagan, and these are the guys that I sort of came up with that were moderate. So all this stuff that's happened over the last 10 years, I just can't identify with it. I don't know how to wrap my head around it, but also trying to tell people that you're still Republican, and then you tell Democrats, like, hey, I'm an educator, I'm a nice guy, I'm not there to, like, it's very difficult. Well, very difficult.
I will say you've come across certainly as a nice guy today. I was a little nervous about doing the interview, to be frank.
No, don't.
So,
I didn't yell at you too much. Come on now.
Well, when you were at the swearing in for Katie Hill, I mean, it was obvious that you were proud of her. I mean, that shined through quite a bit.
I started tearing up. I almost cried in front of you guys. Oh, come on. Anytime you're a student, coming in here today, I had a student, and he's probably in his 30s, and he yelled my name. Everyone calls me Ferry. All the kids call me Ferry. It's never Mr. Ferry. It's like, Ferry! And he came over, gave me the biggest hug, and started tearing up because, and I remember him. I helped him, and he said, I was in the Marines, I did this, I have a wife and kids, I just went and did this, I'm about to get my bachelor's. He was so proud, and he just wanted to tell me this. And it's like, it's such a good feeling. I mean, if you're an educator...
Yeah. My wife's a teacher. She talks about that.
That is the absolute best, is when a kid comes up and wants to tell you they're doing well.
Yeah, yeah.
So...
I'm just curious. I mean, first off, one last question, then we'll have a little quick fun.
Sure.
See, because I know you got to get out of here. But considering you were talking about how districts are negative to effective city council government, how are you going to handle that if you're elected in LA? I mean, what are you going to do about that as far as how are you going to approach it?
The city of LA is a lot different than Santa Clarita. Mm-hmm. They set up a system where each council member, there's 15, pretty much watch over and service their district.
Yeah.
So I will look to District 12 and make sure that's being serviced with, I think there's 40 to 50 staff members in the budget, making sure it happens. Mm-hmm. But then we have to come together still as a council 3 times a week to vote on, issues that are more overreaching, more, of the total community. So I know for me, I'll go and I'll meet every single one of them with the intent of getting to know them, being able to work with them, being able to collaborate, and being able to be flexible and get things done. So it's just a matter of whether it's receptive or not.
Okay. Do you keep up with what's going on in Santa Clarita today? I mean, you pay attention to...
Well, because my wife, she owns a business up here, and so I've helped her grow that business. So and my brother's a principal at Saugus High School.
Yeah.
But I still, probably every day or every other day, I still look at this, the local paper and see what's up. And I still go to at least 6 nonprofit events probably a year. And so I love this community. I absolutely love. My wife, who bought the dental practice where I was going, basically, I told her, I said, I don't want a new dentist. I want my old dentist. And then I realized, okay, I have a new wife and a new dentist. So but she had a younger son who they lived in the Valley, and he went to El Camino. Mm-hmm. Both my sons were in college. So, after a divorce, you just don't see yourself getting married again. So 10 years later, I meet my wife, and you want to get married, and it's one of those things where it just worked out where I wanted to get married, and I was willing to move because I didn't want her son to be displaced from school, and that's how it worked out.
Do you think?
And I thought my public service was over.
Yeah.
This was a fluke. I just didn't see myself doing this until Englander resigned and went on to another job, and I thought they were going to give it to someone for 2 years. And
when is the election?
June 4th.
June 4th. Okay.
Yeah, special election. So it's going to be 17 people, and I think it's down to about, I'd say there's 4 or 5 legitimate people that are going to vie for that. So.
Okay. Well, let's have a little fun.
Let's go.
First question is...
Depends on what your definition of fun is. We'll see.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Yeah. Star Trek. Oh, I love Star Trek. I've watched it my whole life. Yep.
Star Trek? Yeah. All right. You and I are kindred spirits then. Marvel or DC?
Well, tell me the characters and I'll tell you who I like better.
DC is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. Marvel is Spider-Man, the Avengers.
No, for sure DC then.
All right. Frank, we have some things in common. Do you have any tattoos?
No.
If you're going to get a tattoo, what would it be? And
where would you put it? Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That's what I always tell my wife. I want to have about a 5-inch one on my stomach, and when you push his belly button, I'll start giggling. So
that's great. Do you have a joke for us?
I don't. I'm horrible at remembering jokes.
Well, that means you have to rap now.
Oh, that's even worse. I'm not chicken. I just can't think of either one. So.
All right, and this is new. Katie was on the show last week, and
I saw her.
So she did it. So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
What is your best evil genius laugh? That's pretty good.
Yep.
Well, Frank, I do appreciate you coming out here.
Thank you very much.
And doing this, and I wish you much luck in the election.
Awesome.
Thank you for your service to the city of Santa Clarita.
Thank you very much.
And we hope you guys enjoy the talk.
You've been listening to The Talk of Santa Clarita. Listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud.com, YouTube, and Stitcher. Barring a life event getting in the way, A new podcast is available every Tuesday. Questions, comments, and show ideas can be sent to thetalkofsantaclarita@gmail.com. You can also call or text us at 661-505-8672. That's 661-505-8672. Follow us on Twitter at The Talk of SC or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at The Talk of Santa Clarita. You can also visit our website by going to www.thetalkofsantaclarita.com. This has been a production of Radio Free Santa Clarita Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To donate, go to radiofreesantaclarita.org/donate. Radio Free Santa Clarita, on the net and on the air, and we're very much aware.
Any questions?